Welcome on into GoldSheet TV Week 13 reactions. I'm your host, Eric Pauly, with my co-host, Dan Alexander. You can find him on Twitter at Newbie Talks. And it's been a long time, Newbie, since we did a Tuesday show. We had the holidays coming in. We
On
had some
me.
travel to work around. But we are back, and it's great to see you, Newbie. Let's talk some Week 13 recap real quick before we get into some topics, mainly the MVP market as well as the playoff market. And then we'll discuss some Thursday Night Football at the end of the show. But Newbie, talk to me. How was your Week 13?
I mean, week 13 was good as far as from a fan perspective of being a Philadelphia Eagles fan. Maybe not so great, but if you listen to the show here, EP it was mentioning, hey, this could be a rough spot for him. The prop that we had in the game, Deebo Samuel, that one wasn't even a little bit close. We got the number at like 65.5 for rushing and receiving for Deebo Samuel. He had about a million. So that was a nice, easy cash there. Also, we got the outright winner with Arizona getting the 5.5. So great weekend here on the show. Great weekend for people who purchased the Gold Sheet because we cashed tickets left and right on that. But we do have to bring up the lone loser. Thanks a lot, Russell Wilson. People talk about letting him cook. Well, he cooked my ticket. The Denver Broncos against the Houston Texans. All good things must come to an end. I was 8-0 betting on or against Houston. Now I am 8-1 as our producer, Robert Harris, gets the outright winner at home, covers the spread. Man, what Houston is doing, I warned people at the beginning of the year, it's going to be a bet on team. Now, the old fade them when they're favorites, that's fallen by the wayside too. Incredible stuff we're seeing out of Houston. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked just because of how this season has gone if by week 18 you're talking about them potentially having a chance to play themselves in to a playoff position, which is just crazy with what we thought about that team coming in. But that's something we'll cover here today. But EP, great weekend, man. Profitable weekend. 3-1 on the show here. So we definitely will take that all day long.
Definitely take it. The Miami Commanders total that I gave out, that was a Gold Sheet pick, just got over because once you throw an interception in that game. The read was generally right, though, that Miami was going to put up the bulk of the offense and the Commanders were not going to be able to hold up their end, but Miami put up too much offense. Then on the other hand, Deontay Johnson couldn't get there. I mean, the weather in Pittsburgh, I was monitoring it. It actually got worse than I anticipated, which kind of killed that with Pickett not being able to throw well in the rain and then getting hurt. But at WagerTalk.com, the LTS picks went 5-2, which of course winning percentage is important because one of those picks was a plus 600 anytime touchdown, didn't miss. The only against the spread or straight up bet that we missed was the Titans, and that game was kind of nonsense. We had two blocked punts, a kicker getting a placeholder getting hit, hurt to lead to a missed field goal that would have stopped the game from even going to overtime. But we cashed the 5% on the 49ers. That was free money. Hate to say it, newbie, but that was a 5% play I saw right away, and that cash. And then we also hit with the Detroit Lions and
Double
had
best
another
bet.
bet there, and also an under in the Patriots Chargers game, which was also just completely free. So
Wasn't even a sweat.
Weekend.
Six points scored in total in that game. Man, that makes me look forward to this Thursday night football preview we have coming up. Woof.
Yeah, we have another one coming up Thursday, but yeah, sweat-free weekend. It was a great weekend. But now let's talk about the market in the awards. So we're going to talk about the playoffs shortly, but I want to talk about the MVP market to start, newbie. I know you're not always in the weeds with the MVP conversation, or not the MVP conversation, just the futures markets, like where to bet. Obviously, you're checking in on Twitter, this and that, of like what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But we owe a single human being an apology. I don't know if you remember, but it was about probably at the beginning of the week season. I want to say it was week 3 or 4, where we said, Brock Purdy, there is no way in hell you are winning an MVP award this current NFL season. Guess what? Brock Purdy is now the betting favorite to win the NFL MVP award. I apologize. I also want to say that, being the astute bettor that I like to, being at the pat myself twice on the back. But before the game yesterday or on Sunday, I went and bet Purdy MVP plus 800. It was the best available to me in New York. And that is now down to plus 300. Newbie, do you think that Purdy really has some life now, or do you still think it should be McCaffrey and maybe like a Dak or Jalen? And this Monday night, or excuse me, this Sunday night should really determine who's the MVP and the winner of that Cowboys-Birds game.
Yeah, and I understand, getting all excited over, Brock Purdy, what he's been doing. And this is obviously people are going to get in the comments and say it sounds like sour grapes, but he's not an MVP candidate, man. I mean, for me, a quarterback, he needs to be able to push the ball downfield in today's NFL. And yes, what they're doing is incredible. But I talked about it earlier in the year. If you're looking at an MVP from the San Francisco 49ers, Christian McCaffrey is more of a worthy, a person for that from this squad more than Brock Purdy. Even on the season, you look at Brock Purdy's his average depth of target, 8.6 yards. That's not bad. That's actually eighth highest in the league. So he does push it downfield. But the thing that made him an MVP candidate was getting the win on the road against the Philadelphia Eagles as a favorite. The team was favored, and we're acting like this is some incredible upset when it was the first game in 10 days for the 49ers. It was the third game for this Philadelphia Eagles defense, something that was part of the handicap of my man EP there in 14 days. So a slam dunk spot for a guy who's a favorite on the road. He wins the game outright, as he should. That means market perception said he should have won by a field goal. Yesterday, or a few days ago, when he played the Philadelphia Eagles, his average depth of targets was 6 yards. That was the lowest in the league. All they were doing was getting the ball out to playmakers, and then Deebo Samuel running a million yards. So I still don't look at Brock Purdy and see an MVP candidate. But in that same breath, I didn't look at Jalen Hurts this year and see an MVP candidate. If you look at the turnover numbers that he has, and if you just watch the games, like this is how I know MVP markets don't watch football. They just look at stats, they check box scores, and they move on because Jalen Hurts this year has not played like an MVP candidate. And if you just look at the top of the board, Dak Prescott, I would say, has the biggest claim. Maybe Tua, who was the MVP favorite, he's pushed all the way back. So these numbers move so much. That's why I can't look at these markets. And it's also so, subjective because for me, it's become a quarterback award. It shouldn't be a quarterback award because if you're asking me who has been the MVP this year, it's my man Tyreek Hill, and I don't even think
100%.
that's that crazy of a take, that hot of a take. But because it's a quarterback award, he doesn't have a shot at winning it. He'll win, Offensive Player of the Year, but it's a joke that he's not at the top of the odds boards alongside Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, so that is 100% facts. Like Tyreek Hill is the MVP of the NFL. If I had a vote, I'm today, tomorrow, at the end of the season, I'm betting on Tyreek Hill. Also, do completely agree with you that Jalen Hurts is getting too much love. Obviously, the 10-2 record is definitely propelling that, but from like a year-over-year statistic comparison, he is having nowhere near as good of a year as he had last season. So I'm with you that it really is a race between Purdy and Prescott. While again, CMC, you can make the argument for. I'm not really going to debate that. And same with Tyreek Hill, but knowing that it is a QB award, they're just not going to win it. Though those two, I would actually put higher, and Tyreek Hill again as number one. But I'm just saying, man, Lamar Jackson, EPA numbers and like advanced metrics are not that
Mhm.
great. He's kind of fallen by the wayside. Patrick Mahomes has been outshined on primetime by Jordan Love, Zach Wilson, and I'm sure another quarterback I'm forgetting because his offense is just bad. So hate to say that Patrick Mahomes is out of the race. And then that's that. I mean, if Josh Allen, if the Bills had a winning record currently, I think Josh Allen would be a lot more in the mix because he's really played well this season. Yes, he's hurt his team with some turnovers here and there, but newbie, for as out as I was on Brock Purdy and just giving him the credit he deserved, just like I like to be proven right or wrong, right? Like I am not going to
Mhm.
see one game or 6 games or 4 games and say this is it for fact. I want to learn. I want to make sure that I really have a strong opinion. And after all this, I'm of the belief that Brock Purdy is deserving to be the favorite right now. Does that mean over the next 4 weeks is going to win the award? To be determined. I have a ticket, so I'm hoping for it now. But he is leading the National Football League in adjusted EPA per play by over zero point 0.1 over Prescott. He is leading in EPA per play. He is leading in success rate. And he is also second now behind Russell Wilson, Dink and Dunk Wilson, in completion percentage. But Purdy has one more air yard per pass than Russell Wilson does this season. Of course, you have the 49ers success. Yes, this team is built to be amazing. They literally, I'm going to say, honestly, yeah, they probably don't have a single weakness. Like this is the most complete team in football, and I see it. I see why Purdy could win it. I could see why people would be a little bit this and that. I'm not giving him the award, but newbie, like I apologize to you, Mr. Purdy. I was not familiar with your game, as I think that was Shaq on an NBA show once said. But he's now the favorite, and I think it's well warranted, newbie.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, if you're looking at box scores, I would agree with you, man. But just for me, when I see 4 touchdowns, that's what people say. 4 touchdowns on the road against the Philadelphia Eagles. Oh my God, how impressive! I watched the entire game. That wasn't Brock Purdy slicing up a defense, and also a defense that was starting essentially, three players in linebackers that wouldn't even probably start in the CFL. So, I definitely think Brock Purdy is worthy of being in the conversation. Putting him at the favorite, that's a little head scratching to me.
It is tough, and then there's also, like we said, there's going to really come down to who wins the Sunday night football game between Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts. That's really going to be major because that's going to, of course, flip who can potentially be the 1 seed in the NFC. A lot of the times, the MVP is the 1 seed in one of the 2 conferences. So this is something to monitor as well: is who wins this football game Sunday night. But also, new remember a couple weeks ago when the first Eagles Cowboys game was ready to be played, and I said an interesting thing to do would have been to bet Dak Prescott in the MVP market before that game. Well, if you took my advice, you probably had a plus 20 to 1 ticket, now sitting at 3 to 1. So I hope our listeners have been taking in some of the knowledge that Newbie and I have been dropping. Betting on the NFL is a crazy, crazy thing, and sometimes a lot more value in better ways to attack the board than just betting on some point spreads and money lines that are heavily influenced by what the referees say. I know Newbie wanted to go in a little spiel today about how bad the officiating has been. We're going to cut that out so we could focus more on some actual information. But I do want to say that it has been absolutely horrendous. It is so inconsistent, and there have been way too many times this season that the referees have literally changed the outcome of football games. Do you agree with that, Newbie?
Yeah, I completely agree. And also, this doesn't even factor in with, obviously the loss the Philadelphia Eagles had. I mean, whether the refs were calling that game properly or not, they never had a chance in that one. But I just feel like as bettors, we all have this frustration. So I won't get up on a pulpit and, bitch here about the refs and that, because we've all been a part of bad beats because of some officiating. And let's be fair, we probably also benefited from it as well. Maybe a
No.
player prop that stays under for you because a phantom holding call, like the end of that Jaguars game last night. So, I'm not going to belabor the point. I think it's something that we all know, but it's also something that you have to factor in. And I think, especially with how prevalent it is in a sport like the NFL and the NBA, it almost makes me want to play smaller unit sizes in those 2 leagues, specifically because it's so impossible for me to handicap a reffing crew. But it's so
No.
important to your handicap because it really can make or break, especially when you're talking about totals and side bets, especially. It's something that you have to factor in. And there are some websites that do look at ref crews, and you can look at how many flags they have. They have that on Pro Football Reference. Maybe that's something that we have to start doing a little bit more, because it definitely has been more prevalent than ever since these sports books have signed the affiliate deals with the NFL. I'm not saying tinfoil hat stuff or anything. I'm just saying that it seems like every year it gets worse and worse, and the calls are game defining calls at sometimes.
Absolutely. Game defining. Like, it's already hard enough to handicap from just a power ratings perspective which team is better than what team on what surface. Then you have to add another layer of what the referees are going to do. Then another just quick tidbit, a little bit of a side note there. Just to consider, like, obviously we have a little bit of season left now. It would be a good time to learn, add some more money in your pocket before, moving on with ready for next NFL season, which is crazy to say. But you also have to handicap not what you think the coaches or the coaching staff should do, but what they're going to do. Like, there are some situations where, like, for example, last night, I mean, this isn't the best example because the Bengals still ended up having a great ground game going last night. But you could have anticipated, like, saying, like, hey, let's bet Joe Mixon overs on the ground game because they're going to try to run the ball with this quarterback who probably can't
Mhm.
throw. And maybe a Browning under could be in play because they're going to want to run the ball. Well, guess what? They absolutely did not do that. Brandon Browning threw the ball all over the field and makes it still went over his rush yard. So not the best comparison, but just saying, like, conventional wisdom could get you to a certain situation, and like you could
Mhm.
be right, quote unquote, but you're also predicting what a human being who sits in a meeting room all day long, breaking down this data, preparing for a game on Sunday, not just him, a whole team. So like there is a lot of underlying factors and things there to keep in consideration. But tangent aside, let's talk some playoff football. Newbie, you mentioned earlier that the Houston Texans could be fighting for a playoff game in Week 18. Well, in Week 18, they play the Indianapolis Colts, who currently has a lead on them in the standings, and they have the final AFC wildcard spot because they have the tiebreaker over Houston. Both these teams are tied record-wise, so you're 100% correct. It could come down to that. AFC playoff picture. Dolphins for 1 seed, Ravens, Chiefs, Jaguars. Wild card, Steelers, Browns, Colts. On the fringe, Texans, Broncos, Bengals, Bills. And you can even consider the Chargers and Raiders at 5 and 7. They technically can win and get in if they continue to win a football game. Newbie, which of the teams currently in the playoffs do you think are going to remain in the playoff picture, including any divisional leaders in the AFC?
Dude, I'll tell you what, AFC, your guess is as good as mine, and anyone can hop below in the comments and they can tell me what their playoff picture is going to be. Because you know when they always do that stupid in the hunt graphic where it's like if you have one win, somehow you're still in the hunt. Always cracks me up seeing that. My man Dave Sherapan tweets out about that all the time. But as far as teams that are in the hunt in the AFC, the answer is yes, other than if your name is the Jets, the Titans, or the New England Patriots. That is just an absolute gauntlet of teams that you're looking at. And part of it, I want to say, is because, they're playing lackluster teams, this, that, and the other thing. They're all playing each other and they're all beaten up on each other. So, it's so tough for me to say who I think is going to stay, who I think is going to end up. I think one thing that we saw last night is with Trevor Lawrence going down and Christian Kirk also going to be out for an extended period of time for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's a team that I could see dropping out pretty quickly. And that's a team that you were saying since the beginning of the year, just wait, and we were getting proven wrong every single week. But with that outright loss last night and losing your quarterback and losing one of your best wide receivers, that's a team that I definitely wouldn't be putting any buy signs on. And if you're asking about teams that I would be putting buy signs on, Denver Broncos, even with that loss, I think it was a tough, exhausted spot for them as well. I don't think I factored in how much they've been playing close games and how much energy that expended. I still don't think they're out of it. I'm shocked to see Buffalo Bills at the bottom. One thing I will say, and then I'll throw it back to you, EP, is this Bengals team, like outside of a quarterback, what are they missing? I know that the defense still has a little bit to be desired. Don't get me wrong, but if they're able to hang around, if Browning's able to have games like he had last night, they're going to be just fine going toe to toe with anybody in the NFC, because it's not like you're looking at any defensive stalwarts that stand out at the top of those defensive or top of the playoff standings. So the Bengals, who were once dead, and once Joe Burrow was gone, everyone was saying, "Up, it's all over." I don't know. I know that there wasn't as much film. I know that it's only one game, but with what the Bengals did offensively last night, I was pretty darn impressed with what I saw there. So I wouldn't write them off just yet. But as far as who's going to drop out of the top, I think Jacksonville Jaguars, if these injuries are as bad as they think they are, they could be the team that ends up being on the outside looking in. It wouldn't surprise me one bit.
Yeah, and I'm totally with you. So I definitely give credit to Browning and the Bengals for how they attacked the Jaguars defense last night. And this is something that was just how football goes. Like the two teams, the Jaguars, I think are very comparable to the Detroit Lions in the NFC. Came in with high expectations on offense and minimal middle of the pack expectations on defense. Both teams met expectations on offense and severely over exceeded expectations on defense. Now the season continued, injuries started to mount up, fatigue started to mount up, more film started to mount up, and both these teams now are two of the worst defensive teams in football. So I can totally see Jacksonville falling completely out of the picture, and we could see the Indianapolis Colts or the Houston Texans usurping the AFC South, and both of those teams even making the playoffs as a wild card. Not saying that's what I'm betting or that's how I can see it or that's what I think is definitively going to happen, but it's definitely in the cards. So Miami, they're not going anywhere. They're a fantastic football team. Baltimore not going anywhere. Fantastic football team. I am concerned about the Chiefs, but they're not losing that division. Then you have whoever wins the AFC South. I think Pittsburgh falls out, and I think that the Buffalo Bills, right now, they're plus 500 to make the playoffs. They obviously have a huge game at Arrowhead. They basically have to run the table
Yeah.
to have a chance. Newbie, any shot the Bills run this table because we know how good this offense has been. It's been fantastic. Defense has been a little bit let down. They can't win that big game. They've lost a couple of close ones that would have really helped them at this point in the season. Newbie, any shot is plus 500 worth of flyer, you think, for them?
If they lose against the Chiefs, I think it's good night Irene, right?
Yeah,
And then you get to follow that up if you do squeak out a win against a Chiefs team that desperately needs it too. Like, you look at this, this is a must win situation, and I think it's not that crazy to start saying this at this point in the season for both of
not
these
at
teams.
all.
For Kansas City, you just need to feel good about something at home, because you really haven't had much to feel good about over this last month and change. For the Bills, you're coming off of a bye. This is a final chance to feel like you're getting right. The problem is, though, if you do win this game against the against the Chiefs, like, your reward is you get to come home and play a Cowboys team that, if they end up beating the Eagles, they're going to be all kinds of energized. I don't think that's a letdown spot. I think that's a holy shit, we could win this whole thing kind of spot for a Dallas Cowboys team that hasn't had much of that late in seasons these last few years. So after that, okay, I'll give them a win on the road against the Chargers, because everybody wins on the road against the Chargers. You come home, you have a Patriots team who Patriots fans are talking about openly tanking, and then you have to go to Miami. Now, the saving grace could be that Miami might not need that football game. But for me, it all comes down to what they can do against the Kansas City Chiefs this week. And if they can't get the win, man, I think they're in trouble. They're 2.5 point underdogs in this one. I think that says more about how poor the Kansas City Chiefs have been than how live the Buffalo Bills are in that game. But I said it before the year, man. I thought the shoe was going to drop for this Buffalo Bills team. There's been times we had to eat our crow, but now that we're coming down the stretch, we might just have, once it's all said and done, our chance to say, hey, we told you so, Buffalo fans.
Yeah, we were both on that same page where we felt as if the window was on its way to being shut, and that
Mhm.
is debatable. But them not making the
I
playoffs
mean,
is
McDermott's
not debatable.
McDermott's gone after this season if they don't make the playoffs. Correct? Like,
100%.
that's even if they lose these next two games, McDermott could be gone before the end of the season and send a message. That wouldn't shock me even a little bit.
Oh, not at all. I think it would be warranted. There's been a lot of situations over the last over his tenure where he has not been the person to lead the team to the victory. Like
Yeah.
Josh Allen, he had the turnovers here and there, but he does everything in his power to elevate a solid football team, to make them an elite football
Yep.
team. Coach McDermott sometimes actually holds them back. But let's talk NFC real quick. Not really a huge need to go into it. Let's just talk wild card. We have Dallas. Actually, I just saw that Dallas, Philly, and the Niners both have situations where they can actually just clinch the fact that they're in the playoffs this week. So
Yep.
obviously, like, we expect that, but it could be set in stone. NFC South is a little bit up for grabs because that's just a joke of a conference. But wild card right now: Vikings at Cowboys at 5. That's locked and loaded. Vikings at 6, who play the Raiders this week, which, Josh Dobbs, Justin Jefferson coming back at least, though. Then the Packers, who are surging. Right below them, Rams, Seahawks, Bucks, Saints. Newbie, just talk to me. If you had to do gun to head wild card right now, who do you think's making it in the wild card in the NFC?
And I'll tell you what, I did not think that as we were getting ready to go for week 14, after what we saw to start the year, I would be talking about my ticket on LaFleur to potentially be coach of the year, having some
Yep.
semblance of life. I mean, that win was absolutely huge, and they followed it up with a huge win, or their win followed up a huge win against the division rival on the road in national television on Thanksgiving, beating the Lions. And now the Packers have a really nice, cushy back end set up. And that was part of the reason why I thought this team could potentially make the playoffs. You got Giants, Bucks, Panthers, Vikings, Packers. That you could be looking at a 5-0 stretch right there, 4-1. I would say 3-2 bare minimum. And then the question is just what happens around you. With the Vikings, I think the Dobbs excitement is starting to wear off a little bit. I think you're starting to see there's a reason why he has bounced around. It's an incredible story. I love me some Dobbs, don't get me wrong. But I think that other shoe is dropping there with that one. So I think the Packers could potentially be leapfrogging them. They have no shot at obviously chance in catching the Detroit Lions and getting the entire division there. But the Rams are also playing really good football right now. And what they're doing offensively doesn't factor in why they're doing it. Kyron Williams was out for a huge stretch of the season. He was on the IR. Since he's come back, I mean, that offense is just humming on all cylinders. And when they're healthy, they're a darn good team with a decent enough defense to make you sweat a little bit. So if it was my three teams who you're potentially looking to get in, Dallas Cowboys, if they don't end up winning the division, I still think if you want to get your Dallas to win the division tickets, grab them now, because after this weekend, I think they probably do end up beating the Philadelphia Eagles at home. You have them at 10-3, the Niners at 10-3, and obviously the Eagles at 10-3 as well. Then it's a race just to see who can grab that one seed up there. So I think Cowboys are obviously in, whether it's division, whether it's wild card, and then the other two teams that I think are fighting for it are Packers, Rams. We'll see what ends up happening with the Seahawks. But I think if I had to choose who's playing their best football right now, if the Seahawks would have gotten that game against the Cowboys, it would have went a huge way to go. But they snatched, defeat from the jaws of victory in that one, which I think could happen to them a couple more times down the stretch here. So it would be Packers, Rams, Cowboys, potentially the Eagles. If the Dallas Cowboys end up putting it to them this weekend, like I think they very well may be. They're live to win the division as well. So I think it's a mess in both of these divisions trying to prognosticate who's going to end up on top, who's going to end up in the wild card, because it's so tight, which is exactly what the NFL wants.
Yeah, it is absolutely nuts. I cannot wait. There are some high impact games, the kind of crappy slate, which Newbie and I will dive in full detail on Thursday. But outside of the crappy games, there are some great games sprinkled in there. So it's a very hit or miss kind of week. But I'm with you. It's whoever doesn't win the NFC East, so the Eagles or Cowboys will be that 5 seed. I hate both teams, so I hope neither of them make the playoffs somehow, some way.
That's fair.
The Green Bay Packers playing their best football. Jordan Love looks absolutely fantastic. It's not just a mirage either. Like, he all season long has been standing in the pocket, trying to make throws, trying to make plays. He's on start 14 in his career, something like that. I know he's been drafted for a while, but I really like what I'm seeing. I have the Packers to make the playoffs future. Thought it was dead. We have life. And then the rest of it for the last week, I think the Vikings, I love Kevin O'Connell. Obviously, they are capable of putting together a good game plan. But Joshua Dobbs, like you mentioned, that I've said for weeks now, like, there's a reason why he's bounced around. Good for him for performing well in those couple of games. But, like, there's a reason why the Browns traded him, and there's a reason why the Cardinals traded him. Then the Rams, I mean, like, they've gotten pretty fortunate with the injuries. Like, I know they've had some, but, like, this team, like, if they were like last year where if like everybody got hurt, like they had no depth whatsoever, they still are in that situation. So, like, still with this limited time left, if like they have one bad game of injuries, they're gone. So I'll give Seattle the nod there. So I'll do the loser of the Eagles Birds, season long race to be the 5 seed, Packers 6 seed. I'm going to give Seattle the benefit of the doubt. Screw the Saints. I hate them. And the Buccaneers just don't have enough sauce to get there, and it's just because Derek Carr screwed me a couple times. But Newbie, Thursday Night Football. Are you ready for the best Thursday Night Football game in the history of Thursday Night Football? The New England Patriots. I got
my Pepto-Bismol ready. I got my Tums ready. I got my what are those sleep masks ready for this one, man. Good God.
Legend has it that Tom Brady and Big Ben are coming out of retirement for this one, and Randy Moss going to be on the field.
They still might not go over the total. They can both play, and they might not go.
So, all jokes aside, New England 6-point dogs. The number actually shot down to 5 today, and looks like it got bet back up. So a little bit of two-way action on the Steelers. Patriots total, man, 30 points, a couple 30.5s out there, but enough said. Doesn't need to really go too deep into it. Why the total is so low? Look at the Patriots, and this is what I find so interesting. It's not like they've played a gauntlet of teams. It's actually been quite the opposite. But since week 10, they played 3 games with the bye included. The New England Patriots are second EPA per play on defense, second in success rate. Dropback success rate, they're 15th middle of the pack, drop EPA. But dropback success rate, they're 13th. Rush EPA number 1, rush success rate number 1. So this team defensively is playing as well, literally as well as any team in football. But so are the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their rushing EPA is amazing. The rush success rate is top 3. Rushing EPA is down to 11, but overall success rate is 3rd. So you just have 2 defenses that are playing at high levels against 2 offenses that cannot move the football whatsoever. Newbie, are you even watching this football game, or what are you thinking here?
I'm going to be watching it because I'm a sick glutton for punishment. And I love football. And EP, it is part of my job. It's one of my favorite excuses when people are like, hey, can you do something on Sunday? Can you do something? No, I got to work. I got to work. What do you mean you got to work? I got to watch Red Zone in these football games. So I'm prepared to do GoldSheet TV. That's what I got to do. For me, honestly, it always feels like sometimes these horrible games, like who was excited to watch the Jags and Bengals last night? And it ended up being one of the best games of the NFL season, to be honest with you. So I always feel like the games that are supposed to be amazing in prime time, they always fall short of the billing a little bit. The ones that are supposed to just be pee pee poo poo caca, like this one, sometimes they end up being pretty darn good games. I don't think that happens in this one, but I think there are some fun bets you can potentially throw in. I can't bet an under at 30, but I'm sure as hell not betting over. I just look at this 6-point favorites for the Steelers. Who the hell is going to score 6 points for this team? If somebody's going to score 6 points, it's probably going to be on a pick six or a fumble six. So I think I'm going to bet the way that I'm going to look to bet this game. I don't think the offenses are going to be doing too much. I actually think Mitchell Trubisky might add a little bit of a spark on the Steelers side of things, but who's going to score points? It's going to be the defenses. So I'm going to try and find the best price that I'm seeing. There's like plus 850s, probably plus 900s out there. I'm going to take a Steelers defense anytime touchdown at plus 850. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit on New England Patriots defensive special teams touchdown at 1200. I think that's the way that I'm going to attack it, because then at least you're having something exciting while these offenses are just droning up and down the field, 3 and out this, 3 and out that. All you're hoping for is a fumble. All you're hoping for is a bad pass. Mitch Trubisky's known for bad passes, as is Bailey Zappi or whoever is going to be the flavor of the week quarterback for the New England Patriots. So give me a defensive special team touchdown either way, a plus 850, a plus 900 ticket, a plus 1200 tickets. That turns into a pretty fun Thursday night game in a horrible football game, in my opinion.
I would think that TJ Watt has a higher probability of scoring a touchdown than like Mike Gesicki does at this point.
Exactly.
Honestly, so my way to attack this football game, and again, like there are times where like we're giving our best bets, like we were talking straight against the spread, straight total, straight prop, where do not parlay, do not get cute, take the wager and live and die by the results as you should. But newbie, hear me out. 3-team, 10-point teaser. Tease this bad boy under. Tease the Army-Navy game under. And tease the Jacksonville Jaguars-Browns game under, because the weather is supposed to be horrible in Cleveland. That total has dropped from 37.5. 37.5 I got yesterday, newbie. I'm holding a ticket. If you are a WagerTalk GoldSheet subscriber for the season on WagerTalk.com, you got notified yesterday morning to bet 37.5 under. That total is now 31. So a 3-team, 10-point teaser, as square as can be. However, in the NFL, sometimes squares are going to win. Teasing down this game, the Jaguars, Cleveland Browns game, and the Army-Navy game. Newbie, tell me how that bet loses besides college OT.
I absolutely love it. That's the sick pup play of the week. I love my teasers. And because you're throwing a college game in there, majority of books are actually going to give you plus money on that, because whenever you're doing college teasers, even the people over at Westgate Sportsbook, Art to Caesars on Wager Talk today all the time, talking about what prices they trade and whatnot. And he says, we'll give you even money on even a 6-point college teaser, which typically if you're looking at NFL, most people are trading around a minus 120. Still, you can find some minus 110s at spots. But yeah, man, if you're throwing a college football game in there, you're going to get plus money. At worst, you're going to get even money on a 10-point teaser. I know people are going to call it whatever. They're going to say it's a sucker bet. That sounds plus EV as hell to me, EP. So sign me up for the sick pup play of the week. All those unders on a 10-point teaser. Yeah, I'm betting that yesterday. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm on that. And I even got, again, the Jaguars Browns go 47.5 under. So I'm like sitting here like counting my CLV.
Yeah, you're already like deciding, what am I going to use my winnings on with that? Sometimes it seems too good to be true, but that just seems like a hell of a wager to me.
Yeah, knowing the way this NFL season goes, next thing you know, Mother Nature's going to decide, nope, we're going to do 85 and sunny in December for the first time in history in Cleveland. And not Trevor Lawrence, now CJ Beathard and Joe Flacco are going to turn back the clocks and put on an amazing football game. But that'll wrap it up for us today. It was really great discussing the MVP market as well as who we think is going to make it in the playoffs this week. As always, on Thursday, Newbie and I discuss our best bets coming up. We're actually on an absolute heater. I want to compile the numbers because we are on a run. Like we started with just going, splitting it, dropping some juice, and we put together, I think, 4 or 5 straight weeks of profitability, which is awesome. GoldSheet.com for the newsletter that is up and running for this week already. So you can check that out there. And WagerTalk.com for LTS picks. Those went 5-2 with one loss being a 0.25 unit plus 600 play for an 11.75% bankroll gain this past weekend. So we appreciate all the listeners and the viewers, and we'll see you guys on Thursday.